So let's go on ahead and get into this video together. This video is about the last 24 hours of the life of the Mexican cartel kingpin El Menchio, who was recently, in the last 24 to 48 hours of this video being made, he was killed by the Mexican army, something like that. And the country has been going into just like pure chaos. His henchmen are fighting for who's going to be the top boss now, and the people of the cities and towns that they're doing this chaos in are suffering for it. So let's get into it.
$15 million FBI bounty on his head.
The most powerful cartel leader who has been killed.
The Mexican army says it has killed the leader of the country's most powerful drug cartel.
First off, any video that's involving you to start off with them saying $15 million bounty on his head just goes to show you how much the government wanted him. I'm surprised he hadn't been turned in a court by somebody who wanted that $15 million.
Most violent and fastest growing drug organizations in recent times.
Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, had a $15 million FBI bounty on his head, higher than bin Laden ever had. For over a decade, this man built a cartel.
Man, they wanted him more than they wanted bin Laden. He's worth more than bin Laden was worth. That's crazy.
Empire worth $20 billion while staying completely invisible to authorities.
You know, man, I always say this. How these guys be so invincible and they making such an amount of money, one, moving such a large amount of product, two, and it's not like they not tell you where their gang is located at. So I always feel like somebody kind of turns a blind eye to these cartels. That's how I feel.
But on this night, his luck ran out. At 4:47 a.m., Mexican special forces surrounded his compound in Talpa de Allende. By 5:23 a.m., the king of the drug world was dead, killed in the same violence he used to build his empire.
CJNG. That's the name of his gang. Dang, that's a perfect pause. I didn't even mean to pause it right there, but that's a perfect pause. Look at this, right? And I know some of my brothers, some of the youngins ain't gonna feel me when I say this. But when I look at a music video, a rap video for these youngins, and I see y'all all dancing around with face masks on, holding these weapons with these big magazines and drums, this is what I see in my mind. I see neighborhood terrorists, this right here. And that's exactly what they look like. They look like damn neighborhood terrorists. It look like the type of people you definitely don't want to get into it with. They serious, man. Every gun up there is an assault rifle. Everybody's vested up, all black, everything. That is a scary sight, man. That's Fredo in the cut.
We got exclusive access to intelligence reports that show exactly what El Mencho was doing in his final 24 hours. At 2 p.m. the day before, he was counting $50 million in cash.
I'm sorry. What did he spend his morning doing? Let's start over.
Reports that show exactly what El Mencho was doing in his final 24 hours. At 2 p.m. the day before, he was counting $50 million in cash.
That boy is raking it in. $50 million in cash. That's what he was doing with his time. Just counting $50 million in cash. That is an astronomical amount of money. I don't even know how much room does $50 million in cash take up? That's astronomical.
By 6 p.m., he knew they were coming for him. And at 3:30 a.m., he made the decision that got him killed. This is the minute-by-minute breakdown of how the FBI's most wanted...
You see how they say he knew they were coming for him? That's what I mean by somebody who just turns a blind eye to the things they do. Until they either get too powerful or too out of control and can't be handled, then I think we see situations like what got him killed. But my point in saying all that is to say that if he knew they were coming, who tipped them off? So they got people working on both sides for the situation.
Man spent his last day on Earth, and why his death triggered the biggest cartel war in Mexican history. El Mencho wasn't just another drug dealer. This man controlled the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the most violent and powerful criminal organization in the Western Hemisphere. The FBI had him at the top of their most wanted list with a $15 million bounty, higher than any cartel leader in history. But here's what really went down. His death didn't just end one man's reign of terror. It triggered the biggest cartel war Mexico has seen in decades. To understand how the most wanted man in Mexico got cornered and killed in his own territory, we got to go back to where it all started. Because El Mencho's story isn't just about drugs.
If you made it this far and you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We appreciate it. We try and hit that 10,000 goal by the end of this year. We have 556. So please hit the subscribe button for your boy, and let's get back into the video.
Drugs and violence. It's about how a poor kid from Michoacan became the most feared man in North America. Let's rewind to July 17th, 1966, in the small mountain town of Naranjo de Chila, Michoacan. Back then, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes was just another kid growing up in one of Mexico's poorest regions. His father, Jesus Oseguera, worked as a farmer, barely making $2 a day picking avocados and corn. His mother, Eufemia Cervantes,
$2 a day picking avocados and corn. And I know at the time that money probably matches the time, but just imagine. That's tough.
sold homemade tortillas in the local market just to put food on the table. The Oseguera family lived in a 2-room adobe house with no running water or electricity. Mencho was the oldest of 7 children, and from age 8 he was working the fields alongside his father. But even as a kid, neighbors remember him being different. More aggressive, more ambitious than the other children. By age 12, Mencho was already showing signs of the violence that would define his life. Local police records show he was arrested.
A lot of the times, they say people with certain traits, you could see it early on in life. And if the neighbors are saying he was already displaying them traits early in life, I could believe it. Because, you know, look what he turned out to be.
3 times for fighting. Once for stabbing another boy with a broken bottle during an argument over a soccer game.
How old was he? He already with the bloodshed.
His teachers described him as intelligent, but uncontrollable.
See?
At 17, like thousands of Mexican kids,
I said once they get uncontrollable or out of hand, you get situations like this.
From poor families, Mencho made the dangerous journey across the U.S. border. But here's what makes his story different. He didn't just cross once. Immigration records show he was deported and returned illegally at least 5 times between 1984 and 1990.
He had a plug that was walking him right across the border and letting him loose on the streets. Because I've watched a couple of videos of people sneaking into the United States through like the Darien Gap and things like that. He from Mexico. He probably was close by the border, so he didn't have to go through all of that. But it's not as easy as just doing it 5, 6, 7, 8 times, unless you're one of the coyotes who make the trip to get other people across, or you got some connect that's just putting you in the game.
During his time in California, Mencho worked in restaurants, construction sites, and farms, but he was also learning the drug trade from the ground up. According to DEA files, he started as a low-level dealer in San Francisco's Mission District, selling small amounts of heroin and cocaine to support himself.
That boy really got it out the mud. He went from hand to hand to boss of the cartel. He got it out the mud.
For real, this dude was washing dishes at a Mexican restaurant on Mission Street during the day and dealing drugs at night. The restaurant owner, who we'll call Carlos for his safety, told us years later that Mencho was always talking about making big money, always planning something bigger. But here's where it gets crazy. In 1992, Mencho got arrested in California for heroin distribution. Instead of learning his lesson, prison became his university. San Quentin State Prison was where he met the connections that would change his life forever. In prison, Mencho connected with members of the Mexican Mafia and other cartel associates who were serving time in California.
He went to school, you know what I'm saying? He went to school, linked up, learned what he needed to learn. And I'm not glorifying this. I'm just calling it how I see it as I watch the video. You know what I'm saying? He was already dibbling, dabbling. He'd have been back and forth across the border a couple times. And once he got popped for that, he went in there and he learned some other stuff he needed to come out and be a bigger problem.
According to prison records, he spent most of his 2-year sentence learning about drug trafficking routes, money laundering, and cartel organization structure. When he got released in 1994, Mencho had a choice: go straight or dive deeper into the criminal world. He chose crime, but with a plan.
So when he got released, was he deported? You know, I mean, because if he was over here illegally and got arrested selling drugs, you would think he would be deported when he was released. So, I mean, I ain't heard him say that, but I don't know.
Unlike other small-time dealers, he understood that the real money was in Mexico, not California.
For sure.
After his deportation back to Mexico in 1994, Mencho didn't return to his family's farm in Michoacan. Instead, he moved to Guadalajara, Jalisco, where he started working for the MENCHIO cartel.
Hey, Guadalajara. Do your homework on Guadalajara and that work. They be having that work.
A mid-level organization that was moving cocaine from Colombia through Mexico to the United States. The MENCHIO cartel was run by the Valencia brothers, and they saw potential in Mencho. He was smart, ruthless, and had connections on both sides of the border. By 1999, he had worked his...
I bet he do got connections on both sides of the border. He keep getting through the cracks 5-6 times. He'd have been over and deported back.
...way up to become one of their top lieutenants, overseeing drug shipments worth millions of dollars. But Mencho was already planning his own organization. According to intercepted communications from that time, he was recruiting his own team of sicarios and building relationships with Colombian suppliers. He knew the Valencia brothers wouldn't stay in power forever. Now, to really understand this, you got to know that the early 2000s were a turning point in Mexican organized crime. The old cartels like Guadalajara were falling apart, and new, more violent organizations were taking their place. Mencho saw this chaos as an opportunity. By 2003, the Mexican government's war on cartels was heating up, and the MENCHIO...
Let me tell you, they might have been trying to take out some low-level players in the cartel. But these guys have compounds, mansions. They know exactly where these guys live at, 1. 2, they ride around 20 cars deep with 100 people with guns and vests. And every single time one of these cities, states, elects a mayor or a sheriff or somebody who dedicates his life to trying to stop the cartels, they Swiss cheese his car. Hundreds of rounds right in the public in front of everybody. So I don't think that they was trying as hard as they trying to make it seem in this video.
Cartel was feeling the pressure. The Valencia brothers were getting arrested one by one, and their organization was fragmenting. This is when Mencho made his move. According to DEA intelligence reports, Mencho started recruiting former Mexican Special Forces soldiers, guys who had been trained by the U.S. military to fight cartels, but were now willing to work for them.
So this dude went and learned the structure of the game, went and seen how it was on hand-to-hand level, and now that he ready to start his own cartel, he didn't start off with hustlers. He started off with military. He went and built his army before anything. And he didn't get little bruh from down the street who go to the range who think he went and got some people who was trained specifically to stop what he was becoming. That's thinking right there.
These weren't just regular sicarios. These were elite soldiers with military training. But that's not even the crazy part. While other cartels were fighting each other over territory, Mencho was building something completely different. In 2010, he officially founded the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, and from day one, his strategy was revolutionary. Be more violent, more organized, and more business-minded than everyone else. The CJNG's first major operation was a coordinated attack on the La Familia Michoacana cartel in 2010.
Look at that, Mo. Look at that, Mo. Now, I know I'm from DC. The YNs be having some crazy straps. I know my Chicago people feel like it's super messed up in Chicago, right? I know my LA, Los Angeles, California people feel like gangbanging is the end zone. But can you imagine if every gangbanger had these guns? Can you imagine if every YN had these guns? This is crazy. This is why I say I love living in America. Things be a little tough sometimes, but this is different. This is different. I don't know if us spoiled Americans can live with this threat of violence. Not the fact that it's just a threat because they get busy, but it's just the fact of just imagine walking to the grocery store and you come out in a truck with 12 guys, all of them vest up, armied up, big assault rifles just ride past. Not the police, just some guys who like, yeah, no, thank you.
But this wasn't just a typical cartel war. Mencho's men used military tactics, coordinated communications, and professional equipment. They wiped out entire La Familia cells in a matter of weeks.
Crazy.
Here's where it gets real. In May 2015, his cartel did something that shocked the world. They shot down a Mexican military helicopter with a rocket-propelled...
Yo. I'm sorry. Let me rewind that one time.
Here's where it gets real. In May 2015, his cartel did something that shocked the world. They shot down a Mexican military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade near Villa Purificación, Jalisco.
Wow.
No.
Shot down a military helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade. Are you really ready to live next door to somebody who's a part of an organization that's doing that? And when you step out back, you look at the cookout. Yo, they tough.
They literally brought the 2 years, the CJNG carried out over...
Man. I don't think no American, not even our cousins from other mothers. I don't think none of them, none of us, me either, got the heart to take down a military helicopter with an RPG. That is insane balls, bro. That is like diamond balls. His balls is made of diamonds. Not the dude who gave the order. The dude who pulled the trigger. That, rest in peace to those soldiers that passed away. Like you say, I'm not glorifying this, but you gotta think, bro. That is, I'm dumbfounded by it.
200 attacks on government forces, including ambushes on military convoys, assassinations of police commanders, and bombings of government buildings. According to former DEA agent Mike Vigil,
you know, he might be a fan of Pablo. Pablo down there had tanks drive up to the damn courthouse, and like Pablo was a different monster too, man.
El Mencho revolutionized cartel warfare.
Wow.
He turned his organization into a paramilitary force that could challenge the Mexican government directly.
Wow.
And he was right. By 2016, the CJNG had over 5,000 armed members and was operating like a private army. Things escalated even further.
5,000 hired guns at his command. This is why his bounty was so high. 5,000 hired guns at his command. Full army style weaponry, artillery that can rival the local National Army of Mexico. This is why he was wanted for $15 million. That is crazy.
When Mencho started targeting government officials personally. In September 2015, he released a video threatening to kill any police officer who interfered with his operations. In the video, he's surrounded by dozens of masked gunmen, all carrying military-grade weapons.
Man, that joint got that assault rifle that dude holding has the grenade launcher at the bottom of it. Oh my God, look at these guns, bro. That is crazy.
The video message was simple but
They got them TI guns.
terrifying. We are the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. We are everywhere. You can either work with us or die. Within weeks of the video's release, over 50 police officers in Jalisco had resigned from their jobs.
Gotta go. I ain't mad at you. You gotta choose life. You gotta do the right thing out here. Nigga said, I quit, I'm gone.
But Mencho wasn't just about violence, he was also a brilliant businessman. Intelligence reports from 2016 show that he had diversified the CJNG's operations beyond just drug trafficking. They were involved in human smuggling, kidnapping, extortion, illegal mining.
Yo, we got 5,000 hired guns that's listening to every. First off, this is how you know he making a lot of money, because the artillery that they got, one, is not cheap. Arming 5,000 dudes with primary sidearms and then specials like freaking rocket launchers and grenade launchers and stuff like that, that's not cheap. Then having to pay them is not cheap. So yeah, I think that he definitely was worth 15 million.
And even fuel theft. By 2017,
right, you start stealing fuel from them people. Oh yeah, they wanted him. His bounty is higher than Bin Laden's. He was stealing fuel. That's it.
CJNG was stealing over 10,000.
They would have been cool with everything else he was doing. That's just like any other cartel. Like I said, look up how many cartels have that type of firepower. But the fact that you were stealing fuel from them, oh yeah.
Barrels of gasoline per day from government pipelines, making millions of dollars in profit. They had turned fuel theft into an industrial operation with their own tanker trucks, distribution networks, and gas stations. Fast forward to 2018, and the US government had enough. They put that $15 million bounty on his head, the highest reward ever offered for a Mexican cartel leader. The DEA classified him as the most dangerous criminal in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, you stealing oil money, gas money, petroleum. What? By the millions? Not a couple of, not a town full of people that's filling up a couple of. You stealing it and making millions off of it? Oh yeah, he the most dangerous. Go get him right now.
But here's what made Mencho different from other cartel leaders.
Right now.
He didn't hide in caves or remote ranches like El Chapo. This dude was running his empire from luxury compounds, protected by hundreds of armed men, and he was doing it in plain sight. Intelligence reports from 2019 show that Mencho owned over 30 properties across Mexico, including ranches, mansions, and safe houses.
So again, when I say somebody turns the blind eye to them, because think about it. Again, when I say somebody turns the blind eye to them, think about this. We dealing with files coming out where it's people and kids have been going missing. And he's into, what did they just say? He's then got into kidnapping and people trafficking. You understand what I'm saying? You put two and two together, because at the end of the day, somebody turns a blind eye to them. You got 30 properties, mansions, villas, all this, and they letting you just purchase and purchase and purchase. They don't say anything until, like I said, you get out of control.
Each property was fortified like a military base, with armed guards, surveillance systems, and escape tunnels. By 2020, the CJNG,
all of which they care nothing about. They went in Bin Laden's house. Okay.
he was operating in 32 Mexican states and had expanded internationally. They had cells in the United States, Europe, Asia, and South America.
Dang.
Conservative estimates put their annual revenue at over $20 billion, making them more profitable than many Fortune 500 companies. But the pressure was building from all sides. Mexican President López Obrador was getting constant pressure from the Trump administration to take down Mencho. The DEA had infiltrated parts of his organization with informants, and rival cartels, especially the Sinaloa cartel, were trying to move into his territory.
Dude, everybody got grenade launchers on the bottom of their guns. All them clips, they vest the, hey, this is that. Yo, you thinking the youngin with the switch is scary? That's a scary sight, man.
The final straw came in 2021, when the CJNG was linked to the murder of 3 American citizens in Michoacán. The U.S. government threatened to designate the cartel as a terrorist organization, which would have given them legal authority.
I just said that, right? But okay, cool. If this was the same group looking like that, if you take that picture that we saw where the dude had the 50 guys around him, if we took that picture and put that picture in Afghanistan, Iran, somewhere over there, they would have been saying this is a terrorist cell. They're doing this, that, or the third. You see what I'm saying?
To conduct military operations.
Why haven't they been classified that as terrorists? Look at the stuff they do to people
on Mexican soil. On January 15th, 2023, at exactly 2 p.m., El Mencho was at his primary compound in the mountains outside Guadalajara, a fortified ranch called 15th, 2023. At exactly 2 p.m., El Mencho was at his...
Yo. Yo, is that a face on the front of the mountain? Head, hair, nose. My bad, y'all.
Primary compound in the mountains outside Guadalajara, a fortified ranch called El Paraíso that had cost him over $10 million to build. The compound was like something out of a movie. 50 acres surrounded by 15-foot walls, guard towers, and enough firepower to fight off a small army. According to our sources inside the organization, Mencho was in an exceptionally good mood that day. The CJNG had just completed their biggest fentanyl shipment ever, over 2,000 kilograms worth approximately 200 million.
Bro, what does America do with all these drugs, bro? It's no way that all them drugs is getting pumped into the people of America, bro. Because that's just fentanyl. That's not the coke. That's not the heroin. That's not the mota. That's just the fentanyl. What is America doing with all these drugs, bro? Where is it going?
$1 on the street. The drugs had successfully crossed the border into Texas, and payments were already coming in. At 2:15 p.m., Mencho was in his private office, counting stacks of cash with his financial advisor, a former banker named Roberto Sandoval, who had been laundering money for the cartel since 2018. Intelligence reports later revealed they were organizing over $50 million in cash that needed to be moved to offshore accounts. But what Mencho didn't know was that the DEA...
If he moving like that, even with him being deceased, his family is still going to be rich for life. They probably don't even have to continue the drug game. They still going to be rich for life.
Had been tracking his communications for 8 months through a sophisticated wiretapping operation. Every phone call, every text message, every encrypted communication was being monitored by a joint task force of American and Mexican intelligence agencies.
Jeez.
At 2:45 p.m., while Mencho was having lunch with his top lieutenants, including his brother Antonio Oseguera and his son-in-law Julio Alberto Castillo, Mexican military commanders were already mobilizing for Operation Thunderstrike, the code name for what would become the largest...
Thunderstrike. That's what they named the operation. You know they was coming to kill him. They was not coming to simply arrest him. They wanted him gone.
Anti-cartel operation in Mexican history. The lunch meeting was taking place in Mencho's private dining room, a lavishly decorated space with bulletproof windows and gold-plated fixtures.
Jeez.
According to intercepted audio,
I heard of bulletproof in the car. This man got bulletproof windows on the house. That come from having a military person telling him what he needs.
They were discussing plans to expand operations into Central America and were celebrating the successful elimination of a rival cartel leader in Michoacán. At 3:30 p.m., everything changed.
Even at the top of his game, he was still taking out rivals. He was trying to expand his territory.
One of Mencho's most trusted lookouts, a former Mexican Army sergeant named Miguel Hernandez, called with urgent news. He had spotted unusual military activity near the town of Talpa de Allende, about 60 miles from El Paraíso compound. The report was specific and alarming. Hernandez had counted at least 15 military vehicles, including armored personnel carriers and helicopters, moving toward the area. This wasn't a routine patrol. This was a full-scale military...
And because that dude was in the military, he was able to recognize that. He was able to see, like, all right, this many people, they look like this, they got these type of weapons, these type of vehicles, it's about to go down. So that's why I was wondering who told him that they was coming for him. Like I say, he had to have an inside connect. But he got people posted up, like he said, they everywhere.
Deployment. According to intercepted communications, Mencho's immediate reaction was anger, not fear. He had been paying millions of dollars in bribes to military commanders and government officials specifically to avoid this kind of situation. Someone had betrayed him, and he wanted to know who. At 4 p.m.,
it's one thing to have the police in your pocket by paying them off, but you paying military officials. That man said he was paying millions to military officials to avoid this type of stuff. Soon as they got the call them people was coming, they deleted, got rid of, broke every phone that he ever reached them on.
Mencho called an emergency meeting with his security chief, a former Mexican Special Forces colonel named Armando Quintero. Quintero had been responsible for Mencho's personal security for over 5 years and had never failed to keep him safe.
Dang.
The security assessment was grim. Quintero's intelligence network was reporting military movements in 3 different directions around their location. Government forces were clearly planning a coordinated assault, and they had enough manpower to overwhelm even Mencho's heavily armed compound. At 4:30 p.m., Mencho faced the most
the military, not ATF kicking in the door, not the feds. The military about to hit your spot, and they coming from 3 different directions. What they call that? It's like, man.
important decision of his life. His security team was recommending immediate evacuation to one of his mountain safe houses, remote locations that would be almost impossible for government forces to reach. But Mencho made a different choice. Instead of running houses, remote PM, Mencho faced the most important decision of his life. His security team was recommending immediate evacuation to one of his mountain safe houses, remote locations that would be almost impossible for government forces to reach. But Mencho made a different choice. Instead of running, he decided to make his stand at a secondary compound in Talpa de Allende. His reasoning was tactical.
Had the chance to escape. Chose to fight the military. He had that much confidence in the firepower artillery that they had that he chose to fight the military. Outmanned and outgunned. I feel like they was outgunned because if they attacked it from 3 different directions, unless he went and got all 5,000 of his troops, I'm sure they was probably outmanned at least.
The Talpa compound was smaller, but more heavily fortified, and he believed his sicarios could hold off any government assault long enough for him to negotiate or escape. This decision would cost him his life.
Why he didn't just escape? You had the chance to go to the mountains and get out the way. You rather shoot it out than try to negotiate or escape versus just escaping before they get there?
But at the time, it seemed logical. The Talpa compound had been designed specifically for this kind of situation. Underground tunnels, multiple escape routes, and enough weapons and ammunition to sustain a weeks-long siege. At 5:15 p.m., Mencho's convoy left El Paraíso for the last time. The convoy consisted of 12 armored vehicles carrying over 80 heavily armed sicarios.
They is the military, they damn so.
Each vehicle was equipped with military-grade communications equipment and weapons that included .50 caliber machine guns and rocket-propelled grenades. The 60-mile journey to Talpa de Allende normally took about 90 minutes, but Mencho's convoy was taking back roads and avoiding main highways. They were also stopping frequently to check for military roadblocks and aerial surveillance. At 6:45 p.m., residents in Talpa de Allende started reporting the arrival of heavily armed men in the area. Local sources told us that Mencho's sicarios were setting up defensive positions around the compound and ordering civilians to stay indoors. By 7 p.m.
Man, them folks really felt like they could take on the military, bruh. They start setting up the defensive positions around the compound. How much is he paying to make y'all feel this way? What type of guns have he gave y'all to make y'all feel this way? Like, what made y'all feel like y'all was going to go up against the military, bruh?
p.m., the compound was transformed into a military fortress. Mencho's men had positioned snipers on rooftops, set up machine gun nests at strategic locations, and prepared improvised explosive devices along the access roads.
Damn.
At 7:30 p.m., Mencho received his final intelligence update. Government forces had surrounded the area with over 500 soldiers, including elite special forces units. Military helicopters were circling overhead, and armored vehicles were positioned at every possible escape route. But Mencho still believed he could win. According to intercepted communications, he told his men, "We've fought the government before and won. Tonight will be no different. We fight until the end." At 8 p.m., Mencho made his final phone call to his wife, Rosalinda Gonzalez Valencia.
All this to say, what was you going to shoot it out to try to negotiate? You think after you done shot for hours and hours and days and killed some of these government officials that you was gonna be able to negotiate your freedom? Or they was just gonna walk you into the jail? Like what was his goal with this?
Who was hiding in a safe house in Guadalajara. The conversation lasted less than 2 minutes, but intelligence agencies recorded every word. In the call, Mencho told his wife, "If something happens to me tonight, you know what to do. Take care of our children and keep the business running." It was the last time anyone would hear his voice.
And they probably finna go lock her up or try to lock her up too. They got the man last ever words said to his wife on recording. That's crazy. That's how on them they was.
At 9:30 p.m., the first shots were fired. Government forces had attempted to negotiate Mencho's surrender through loudspeakers.
They tried.
But his response was a rocket-propelled grenade that destroyed a military vehicle and killed 2 soldiers.
My man with the rockets is not playing, bruh. You hit the rockets off on the dime.
The firefight that followed was unlike anything
Face-to-face
Mexican authorities had ever experienced. Mencho's sicarios were using military tactics and weapons that rivaled those of the government forces.
Damn.
The battle could be heard for miles, with explosions and gunfire echoing through the mountains.
Damn.
According to military reports,
Damn.
the initial assault lasted over 3 hours. Government forces were using helicopter gunships, armored vehicles, and elite special forces.
Yeah, this nigga's using rockets on feet, man. Dang, bruh. This is crazy, bro.
Units,
Crazy.
but Mencho's men were holding their ground. At 11:45 p.m., government forces called for reinforcements. The resistance was stronger than expected, and they needed additional firepower to break through the compound's defenses. Midnight came and went, and Mencho was still.
Man, they made the government call for help. The government had to call for help. Them dudes made the government call for help, man.
Still holding out. But at 12:30 a.m. on January 16th, his communications went dark. Government forces had successfully jammed all radio frequencies and cut off cell phone towers in the area. At 1:15 a.m., the compound's main generator was destroyed by a government missile strike, Sinjanisi Baikal's Alsostrainis, plunging the area into darkness.
Damn.
This was the beginning.
They took out, so listen, that's why it's hard to go to war with them. They took out the communication because they controlled it. They just called somebody and, yo, we having issues. These guys using the phone while we try to do that, cut that off. And they blew up the generator to put the whole damn area into darkness. They finna come in with the night vision goggles, all type of stuff.
Of the end for Mencho. Without communications or electricity, his defensive positions were compromised. At 2 a.m., government forces began their final assault. Using night vision equipment and thermal imaging, they systematically eliminated Mencho's defensive positions one by one. At 3:30 a.m., Mencho...
Taking them folks out from the helicopter using the infrared heat is diabolical. That's diabolical, one by one.
Made his final fatal mistake. With his compound overrun and most of his men dead or captured, he decided to attempt an escape with his remaining sicarios. They loaded into 3 armored vehicles and tried to break through the military perimeter.
Dang.
The escape attempt was doomed from the start. Government forces had...
Well, why did y'all jump into the vehicles and try to ram through the perimeter when you just was talking about all these escape routes and tunnels that this place supposed to have that they was in?
Night vision equipment, helicopter support, and complete control of the area. Mencho's convoy made it less than 2 miles before being stopped at a military checkpoint. The final confrontation happened at exactly 4:47 a.m. on a dirt road just outside Talpa de Allende. When soldiers ordered the convoy to stop and surrender, Mencho's response was to open fire with an AK-47 from the passenger seat of the lead vehicle.
Crazy.
The firefight lasted exactly 8 minutes and 37 seconds.
See, when you're in the hood, it's one thing to hear shots go off for 10, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, even on New Year's Eve, you know what I'm saying? But to hear consistent, just back and forth, big boy guns, AKs, M14, 16s, whatever you call it, to hear that going back and forth for 10 minutes straight is a different ball game. Trust me.
Government forces used overwhelming firepower, including helicopter gunships and armored
On the
vehicles.
cars,
When the shooting stopped, Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, El Mencho, was dead. At 5:23 a.m., military medics officially pronounced El Mencho dead at the scene. The most wanted man in Mexico had been killed in his own territory.
so I wonder, was that bounty dead or alive? Like, was it 15 million if he alive, or was it 15 million dead or alive?
Surrounded by the same violence he had used to build his empire. The investigation that followed Mencho's death revealed just how close he had come to escaping and how extensive his criminal empire really was. In his final hideout, authorities found over $15 million in cash,
Dang,
enough weapons to arm a small
65 million.
army, and detailed plans for fleeing to South America. But the most shocking discovery was a series of encrypted hard drives containing the complete financial records of the CJNG. These files revealed that
That's what they wanted. That $20 billion on them hard drives, you think you finna send that overseas where we can't get hold of it? They can't get that right there.
cartel was making over $50 million per month and had assets worth more than $5 billion hidden in banks around the world. The hard drives also contained hit lists with the names of over 200 government officials, journalists, and rival cartel members that Mencho had marked for assassination. Among the targets were 3 U.S. senators, 2 Mexican governors, and a federal judge in Texas.
I bet them U.S. senators is all along the borderline.
Within hours of Mencho's death being confirmed, the CJNG's response was immediate and coordinated. His lieutenants had prepared for this possibility and immediately activated what they called Plan Apocalypse, a series of coordinated attacks designed to paralyze the Mexican government. Across Jalisco, Michoacán, and Guanajuato, CJ...
So, and, you know, I might be missing something, but these people are from this area, or at least this state, this country, right? And they just turn on the public and just decide to do all this stuff to the people of the public because the military killed their boss. Like it's almost just inhuman sometimes.
CJNG Sicarios began burning vehicles and blocking highways. In total, they burned over 200 cars, trucks, and buses, creating massive traffic jams and trapping thousands of civilians.
Okay.
The vehicle burnings weren't random. They were strategically placed to block access to airports, military bases, and government buildings. The message was clear. If you kill our leader, we'll bring the country to a standstill.
Dang.
But the violence went beyond just burning vehicles. In the 48 hours following Mencho's death, the CJNG carried out over 50 targeted assassinations of police officers, government officials, and rival cartel members across Mexico.
I feel like they do this to say to the government of their state, of their country, this is in retaliation for you working with the Americans. Yeah, this is in retaliation for you working with the Americans. So since you decided to work with the Americans, we're going to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C.
In court documents released 6 months after his death, prosecutors revealed the full scope of Mencho's criminal activities. The CJNG had been responsible for over 3,000 murders, 500 kidnappings, and drug trafficking operations.
3,000 bodies. That is just the ones they know about. Sheesh. Y'all go over there to his channel, check out the rest of that. That's kind of crazy. That's literally the only thing I can say for it. I'm kind of at a loss for words for the type of stuff them people allowed to get away with and do. But we live here in America where we don't have to deal with that, and I'm thankful for that. So like this video. If you like it, I love it. Hype this video for me. Get me in the algorithms. And if you made it this far and you're not a part of the family, subscribe. We will definitely appreciate it. Anyway, I'm finna catch y'all on the next video.